Business is a lot like sports. Some years you are in a building year and some years you're making a run for the championship, but what's most important is that you know which season you're in. Let's talk about that in today's video. Hey, I'm Spencer Powell, and if you don't know me, I'm the CEO over at Builder Funnel, and our marketing agency has helped our clients generate well over $150 million in remodeling and custom home projects. And this channel, Builder Funnel TV, is where we share some tips and some strategies, things that have worked for us, in hopes that they work for you as well. So today we're going to talk about the seasons of a business and kind of different levels of growth. And this was one of the themes and kind of topics that I talked about with our team this year, and I wanted to break it down a little bit further in this video, and that is just kind of understanding that some years your business is in a building year, and so you're thinking about things like adding new technology, or you're adding overhead, or you're making new hires. Just like in sports, you're making key draft picks, you're hiring new coaches, you're installing a new playbook. There's a lot of similarities to that. And oftentimes those years when there's a lot of change or you're making some of those big moves, you're not really in a position to make a strong run at a championship year or even a run at the playoffs. And so I think in business, that's okay as long as we understand the season we're in and we're really leaning into it so that we are setting up for those years where we can really make a run at it. So let's talk about a couple of different scenarios that I think will maybe paint this picture. So let's take an example of a $2 million remodeling company. And you're in a spot where you've built your overhead structure in such a way that the way your current setup is, you could definitely handle about $2.5 million worth of remodeling work, but you're operating at about $2 million. So in this case, you need an additional $500,000, and you could operate, pretty much the same overhead structure that you've got. That means that out of that additional $500,000, let's say you're operating at a 35% gross margin on your project. So after all of your, labor and job costs and everything, that means out of that $500,000, $175,000 will drop to your bottom line because you're not having to adjust your overhead structure. So it's just anything on those additional projects is dropping right to the bottom line. And so in this scenario, you'd be looking at, well, gosh, I might even be willing to spend, 60 to 100 grand on marketing to ensure that I grew and got enough leads to get the additional 500,000, because I know I'm going to clear, 175. And so you deduct your marketing costs and you might be sitting at, 100% ROI just in the first year alone. And that doesn't include any compounding effects from any of that marketing groundwork that you laid that year. And so in that example, you'd be looking at like, hey, this is kind of a championship year, making a run at the playoffs kind of year, because you're saying we've got the infrastructure in place to handle a lot more, and anything above kind of where we're at, is hyper profitable work, because the first, 2 million were, maybe your low profit, a few percentage points, and then this is where you're really going to zoom into kind of high profit years. And so that would be kind of a scenario of a playoff championship run type of thing, and then maybe the decision making around what do you want to invest in. And so let's compare and contrast that to maybe another scenario. Once you get to the 2.5, great, we did 2.5, we were a lot more profitable this year, and now we're trying to get to 3 million. But really that hurdle, you're saying, gosh, we can't handle the 3 with kind of our current setup. Like, we need to add on a salaried position. We need to change our overhead structure in such a way that we can actually support and deliver on 3 million. And so at this point, you may be looking at, well, gosh, now we need to invest in continued, marketing sales efforts to get us to the 3, but we also need to make some other overhead changes that are going to be fixed. And so your structure changes. And so you're going, well, now I've kind of got a couple of choices. Either I can make these investments and push to 3 million and I'll maybe be lower profitability, or I might say, well, gosh, I don't want to do that. I've got to push all the way to 3.5 with these changes so I can maintain maybe the same percentage of profitability. And so I I think what this puts you in is just, hey, a decision around like how aggressive are your growth goals, but then two, kind of understanding the scenario you're in and saying, hey, really I'm at this kind of jump point where I need to make this investment so I can get to the next level, but then I need to fuel and make sure I actually have, you know, the marketing and sales to support that new level of overhead. And so I think it's okay to say, hey, I'm making these investments, I'm making these moves, I'm installing new equipment, new technology, I need to buy, you know, a new truck or whatever it is that's going to set you up. But just understanding, hey, this might be a lower profit year, but I'm setting up for the next year that should, you know, be much higher profitability. Or just saying, nope, I'm trying to go for it all, but it's going to be maybe a little more chaotic, and I'm going through fast growth, and I'm going to try to kind of, you know, work both ends of it. But I think the point here is a couple of things. One, you know, I'm generally in favor of always staying profitable, even if it's low profitability, but then just being super intentional and kind of trying to figure out and acknowledge, yeah, this is kind of the year that I'm gearing up for, and then just lean into it hard. So if it's a building year, build. And if it's a, you know, I'm making a run for it, like make a run at the championship, try to like maximize profitability that year. And then you may be setting up for like, hey, now we kind of hit this spot and we either want to like hold that and just try to make a run. And then you may say, you know what? Okay, we made a run for a couple of years. We're ready for that next level. Now we're going to build. Now we're going to invest into the future. And so I think if you can kind of identify, you know, the season that you're in as a business and kind of the growth path that you're on, then you kind of can sit with it a little bit easier, I find, because you do go through these like ups and downs as an entrepreneur and a business owner, and you do go through real seasons of growth and seasons of change. And so I think it's just about embracing that, acknowledging what you're in, and then just pushing really hard into whatever season you're in. So whether this year you're in a building year or you're making a run at the championship, just lean into it. All right, guys, we'll see you next time here on Builder Funnel TV.